Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News. Today is Wednesday, the 18th day of September, 2024. And as always, we have some very important stories for you this morning about what's going on in the world and how it sets the stage for what the Bible said our world is going to be like at the end of this age before the second coming of Christ and the many events that the scripture predicts that will precede it. Well, yesterday was wild. Exploding pagers in Lebanon injured thousands of Hezbollah terrorists. And according to the Jerusalem Post in a great article, a full-scale war with Hezbollah is closer now than ever. So what we're going to do today is summarize what happened yesterday, the fallout from the attacks, and then talk about, well, where do we go from here? And so that's our program today on breaking news. Now, just a reminder, we also have our second program today, Timeless Truths from the Bible, where we go through my book, 10 Reasons to Trust the Bible, as we're looking at various subjects with respect to the Bible found on our website, Educating Our World. We have 12 books on the subject of the Bible, and we're almost through them. 10 Reasons to Trust the Bible is one of the most important of all of them because it gives the reasons why the Bible should be trusted as the living Word of God. So hopefully you can take advantage of that. That'll be posted later today on our website, on our YouTube page, and on our app. All right, so here's the headlines. Headline number one, Lebanon health minister says 4,000 people were injured in pager blasts yesterday, 400 critically, 11 are dead. The Lebanese health minister reported last night, Tuesday night, that the number of injured in the explosions of communication devices in Lebanon and Syria has reached approximately 4,000, with 400 in critical condition. Additionally, 11 people have been confirmed dead. This is from YNET News. Now, Hezbollah, according to another report, this is from a Saudi television channel. They say that 500 Hezbollah operatives have lost their eyesight in the pager explosions on these handheld devices in both Lebanon and Syria. Again, this is from Saudi television channel El Hadath yesterday. All right, what happened and why now? This is the big question. All right, why now and what happened? Basically, use it or lose it. Israel reportedly set off these pagers amid fears that a plot was exposed. Now, this is a plot, obviously, that had been, in the workings for quite a few months, for a long period of time. So here's what's gone on. Mossad basically reportedly put explosives in thousands of pagers during production before these devices reached Lebanon, planning to detonate them in the event of a full-scale war. So that was the plan. If a full-scale war came about, then they would detonate them. Now, Israeli intelligence services originally wanted to detonate the pagers as an opening blow in an all-out war against Hezbollah. This is from Axios, citing American and Israeli officials. Now, what happened? They chose to act early, however, when a Hezbollah member became suspicious of the devices and planned to alert his superiors. This is from Al Monitor, another source that said this. So seemingly what happened, these devices were in place, these handheld devices, but somebody figured out that something's not right with them and was going to report it to superiors. So it's use it or lose it. Now, what happened was the Mossad injected a board inside the device that had explosive material that receives a code. It's very hard to detect it through any means, even with any device or a scanner, a Lebanese security source said. The source claimed Hezbollah ordered the pagers from a Taiwanese company called Gold Apollo, but executives there said the devices were actually manufactured and sold under a license by BAC Consulting in Budapest, Hungary. Yeah, yesterday they had the guy in Taiwan. He was being there's a news conference anyway, he's being surrounded by cameras. Well, what happened? He said, no, wait a minute, we didn't send these from Taiwan. Yes, they've got our label on it, but there was a company, a third party that we used in Budapest that sent out these devices. So it wasn't us. They didn't come from Taiwan. They came from Hungary. So Israeli spies, what happened? They stashed explosives in some 5,000 European-made pagers at production level months ago before detonating the devices as coded text message triggered the blast that was revealed. The Lebanese group earlier said this year, now this is interesting, they'd ordered thousands of pagers to conduct communications after leader Hassan Nasrallah declared smartphones would be more susceptible to cyber attacks by Israeli forces. So that's why they ordered these pagers, because they're afraid the smartphones could be attacked with cyber attacks. And they wanted to make sure if the war broke out, they could communicate with one another, hence the pagers. Okay, so at 3:30 p.m. yesterday in Lebanon, the pagers received a message that appeared as though it was coming from Hezbollah leadership. two of the officials said. Instead, the message actually activated the explosive. Hezbollah, of course, blamed Israel for the explosions and vowed to retaliate. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Arghachi condemned the explosions, calling it a terrorist act and blaming Israel. Yeah, that's rich, a terrorist act. Here's Hezbollah been bombing Israel for 11 straight months for no reason whatsoever. Now they responded. So this is a terrorist act. All right, now what's going on now, though? And here's the problem for Hezbollah. It's their worst nightmare. They have a chaos in their ranks. Hezbollah is a very highly trained and disciplined terrorist group. What's now facing chaos and vulnerability after a large number of its members were injured by exploding communication devices. And also, too, how are they going to communicate now? Because these 5,000 devices are either blown up or worthless. And so they have to figure something else out now. So they're in a real chaotic state right now. That is Hezbollah. So it is amazing how Israel pulled something like this off. It shocked and surprised everyone. One of the reasons why they've waited for so long to get all this in place. Hezbollah must worry what else Israel does have up its sleeve. So this is the latest on this. Now, what's interesting about this, I talked to my friend Nader. We've mentioned him before. And if you're new to us, he is Iranian. He's come to America a number of years ago as he was a Muslim. He fought for the Mujahideen. He became an atheist and just gave up Islam. And someone shared the gospel with him here in America. And he's not only a Bible-believing Christian, he basically is the brains behind a lot of things internationally going on and getting the gospel out to the world in countries where people are under attack, like in Afghanistan and Iran. Anyway, we talked about this, and he said he was surprised that they did this, very impressed. There's also the technology. In fact, he showed me a clip of a movie done in 2009 of an exploding cell phone in a movie. He said that technology is available. It's been available for 15 years. And he's told me actually when the movie basically came out and they showed this, they called in the writer of this movie and asked him how they knew about this sort of technology was there. And they used to do the same thing with the late Tom Clancy, who wrote all these great books because he seemed to know things that you're not supposed to know. Anyway, the cell phone technology, Nader said, because you've got the phones, the burner phones that come about, it'd be too hard to do something like that. It said it cost billions of dollars. This was a much smarter move that they made, really brilliant. And it only came about because Nasrallah said, well, we don't want a problem with the smartphones, showing where we're at or any type of hacking. So it is interesting how all this came about. All right. So now we have a second headline, and this is from the Jerusalem Post. It's a great article if you want to get a chance to read it. And the headline is Full-Scale War with Hezbollah is Closer Now Than Ever Before. This is the analysis here. Now, this goes through the whole 9 yards here of where we're at. And it really is a great explanation of why now? Why now? All right. Sources have told the Jerusalem Post at this time a major operation could very well be right now. It's the closest Israel's ever been to a full war with Hezbollah since October 7th. And the article says this is true even in comparison to a period between July 30th and August 25th, probably the second most dangerous period between the two sides. How do we know that the coming days, weeks, and a month or two before winter are potentially explosive? And there the article is going to tell us. It's not just because Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, who told the U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin on Monday that the possibility for a diplomatic solution with Hezbollah in the north is running out. The time is running out for that. It's not just because of the rumors that Netanyahu wants to replace Gallant with Gideon Sa'ar as defense minister in order to have greater support for a major operation against Hezbollah. It's not even Netanyahu's main political opposition. Benny Gantz continues to call out the prime minister for being too scared to risk a major battle in the north, which has left about 60,000 evacuated northern residents abandoned for nearly a year now. So here's the key: confidence for major Hezbollah operation. These are the open and obvious signs, and frankly, much of Israel's political and military class has been threatening to send Hezbollah back to the Stone Age since early spring. The Jerusalem Post has received indications behind the scenes at both the political and military levels from sources who, although beforehand were pouring cold water on the public statements, are now signaling that these statements are serious. Now, what are the reasons? Okay, here we go. The reasons highlight how realities have changed a lot over the course of the war. Throughout, the main reason not to enter the war with Hezbollah was to avoid distractions that might handicap the IDF of its goal from taking apart all 24 of Hamas's battalions in Gaza. Now, Gallant declared the last battalion in Rafah was defeated on August 21st, nearly a month ago. So cross that off. This has all been done. Now, despite Netanyahu's threatening words publicly and his tone, another major reason the war has not broken out is the prime minister was privately terrified of how many Israelis might die from an estimated Hezbollah onslaught, 6,000 to 8,000 rockets per day. That would cost a lot of lives. But August 25th, as the article says, changed all of this radically. On that day, Hezbollah planned to launch several hundred, possibly up to 1,000 rockets on Israel, including on critical intelligence headquarters bases north of Tel Aviv. Netanyahu and the war cabinet instructed the IDF not to launch a full preemptive war on Hezbollah because, among other reasons, the prime minister was still worried about the impact on the Israeli home front. Well, what happened? We know the military blew up the vast majority of the rockets and drones, which Hezbollah had intended to attack Israel with before these threats were even launched. In this particular attack, Hezbollah neither killed nor damaged anyone or anything of significance, while the IDF destroyed thousands of rockets. Now, suddenly, as the article tells us, Netanyahu has a newfound confidence that he can actually afford a major operation against Hezbollah with much fewer losses to the home front than he had expected. So what if instead of 5 to 10,000 dead Israelis from tens of thousands of Hezbollah rockets over several weeks, he could hit Hezbollah harder than it's ever been hit before and destroy so many of its rocket launchers on the ground that Israeli casualties might be a lot smaller, in fact, even exponentially smaller. Now, another factor was until now, there was a chance, a slight chance that Hamas, remember, was going to agree to a ceasefire. If that was the case, Hezbollah said such a deal would lead them to unilaterally stop attacking Israel, just as it did during the November 23rd to 30th deal. If you recall, for that week when there was a hostage exchange, there was no fighting from Hezbollah. They did stop sending rockets during that week-long hostage exchange. While this is not impossible, the chances of a ceasefire with Hamas are now lower than have ever been in several months. No kidding. After both sides have dug in on various issues, after having seemingly navigated about 90% of the obstacles. All along, the only other option that's been discussed, if diplomacy fails, was a major operation. All right. Hezbollah chief Nasrallah is still furious about the killing of his military chief, Fuad Shakur, by the IDF on July 30th. With this in mind, no one views him as being more flexible now than before. Finally, and here's really the key, this is interesting, the winter factor comes into play. Sources have told the Jerusalem Post if more than 4 to 6 weeks pass without an operation, it may be impossible or much harder to carry out such an operation until spring 2025. This would mean condemning the northern residents to another 6 months outside their homes, something becoming increasingly untenable domestically in Israel. Sources said that the winter in the mountainous Lebanon is far more fierce and difficult to manage than in the Gaza desert, so it'd be very tough to do any type of military campaign. None of this means that a new broader war with Hezbollah is certain. It would still be a risky proposition for Israel, Hezbollah, and also all sides sponsors the U.S. and, of course, Iran. Now, the U.S. could be drawn into a regional war, or at least as seen as having failed to prevent a larger one after a year of diplomacy, which could impact the presidential election race. Now, let me give you a quick aside here. This should scare the daylights out of Israel. Kamala Harris is supposedly now talking with various people, trying to put together some type of plan if she's elected president immediately to cause Israel to do a ceasefire. So if she were elected president and there's not an attack coming in the next few weeks, having to wait to the spring, if she's inaugurated, she could do things that would actually hinder Israel from, getting rid of Hezbollah like they need to, waiting out another 6 months. So this is something that's also leading them to do this in a hurry before this presidential election takes place. So we got to keep that in mind also. The last thing they want is her in office when they're trying to do something militarily, because with her her statements and that she would do everything she can to stop Israel from defending itself. And so Iran could lose Hezbollah as its major potential threat against Israel should the Jewish state dare thinking of attacking the Islamic Republic's nuclear facilities. Hezbollah would undoubtedly remain the main player in Lebanon, but might lose many of its feared capabilities. And so the article concludes with saying this is the riskiest time in the North since October 7th. So that's the latest. What's going to happen next and what will happen and when it will happen is anybody's guess, but it seems like something is going to happen soon. So we will wait and see with what happened yesterday with the exploding handheld devices. Now we've got the situation set where you've got winter coming in 4 to 6 weeks time, and which would really thwart the fighting capabilities of Israel and mountainous Lebanon. So if they're going to do something, it seems now or never, particularly because of the weather, would hold it back for 6 months, and then the possibility of Kamala Harris being elected president of the United States, which Lord only knows how that would affect Israel going forward. So you've got all these things that seemingly are pointed to a fairly soon attack by Israel on Hezbollah. And particularly now, if you're going to do it, you want to do it because their communication is just terrible. All their devices are gone. They're in chaos, this disciplined group. So now they're vulnerable and they need to be taken care of. And remember, as we've said here, the Bible indicates very clearly that in the last days, when there is an invasion of Israel, Ezekiel 38 and 39, the northern part of Israel's country is at peace. They're not afraid of any type of invasion from the north because everything is calm, which means Hezbollah has been taken care of. They're no longer a threat. They're no longer there as, someone who could attack Israel. And Iran, of course, is a secondary nation during this last day's invasion. They come with Russia, but it's a Russian-led invasion at that particular time, which is totally different than the scenario we have right now. So we'll keep an eye on all this. Again, our website, Educating Our World, please check it out. 25 signs. We're near the end. We've got 12 books on Bible prophecy. That's one of them, which lists what's going on, which will go on. And like we said, 70 things of these 25 signs, 70 specific details have already been fulfilled with respect to what's going to happen at the end, and another 30 are in the process of being fulfilled. So please check that out. All right, I'm Don Stewart. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, until the next time, may the Lord richly, richly bless.